So, here at General Motors, our mission and our vision is 000. Everybody here in the organization is behind this mission, and 000 stands for zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. Zero crashes. The goal is for that to come from the automated and advanced driver assist technology that we're developing and that we're putting on the road more and more every day. The zero emissions will come from our electric vehicle development, and the goal is to put everybody and every one of our customers in an electric vehicle, and then zero congestion. We all know however many times we see a traffic accident or a traffic jam, and we're like, what caused this? Oh, it's just people, not following correct driving habits. So when we implement and launch these automated driving systems and robo taxis, that'll cause a lot less congestion. And so our goal is to give our customers their time back so they're not stuck in traffic because of the systems that we develop. And so I'm lucky and fortunate enough to be able to have an opportunity to work on these missions directly in my current role as as an autonomous vehicle systems engineer. And so, like I said earlier, my first role was a design release engineer, where I was working on the autonomous robo taxis, specifically the articulating radar assembly. And as a design release engineer, you're basically the CEO of that part, or the chief engineer of that part is what we like to call it. You're the point person. You design it, you release it, you handle all the issues and problems around it. The vehicle or program team will give you a set of requirements and say, for example, hey, we need a radar that can fit into this space, that can see, and I'm just throwing a random number out there, so don't run off to the meter, that can see, 300 meters or 400 meters ahead, a motorcycle. And that's when I have to take those requirements and look and see, okay, what technologies exist that can enable a radar to be able to meet that requirement, or to be able to see a motorcycle or a human or another car at a certain distance. Because the sensors of the vehicle, such as the radars, lidars, and cameras, those are the eyes of the vehicles, right? We always want to have multiple sensing modalities, to be able to see the vehicle for safety. Because everything that GM does, we always put safety number one. So we're not going to launch any product that we don't feel is 100% safe. And so, like I said, I look at those technologies that exist to investigate the supplier base and do a lot of research, and then narrow it down to, maybe a top 5 or top 3, and do all the pros and cons and, all the criteria for each of the options and the choices. And then as a team, it's not just me picking what supplier I want to do. We look at everything, from cost to manufacturability to capabilities of the supplier to their experience, to how well it can integrate into the vehicle that we want to put it into. We take all these measurables and all these criterias and then make our selection. So once we make that selection, we develop a timeline and a roadmap, and manage the project and the component along the development to meet project timing, to meet our pre-production test builds, and to pass all of our testing that we need to do for those components. And so that, like I said, that was a very fun role. It really got into the hardware and the components, and the really in depth into the weeds of radar and component design. I did that for about 2 years, and now I'm currently, and then I transitioned to my current role now, and I've been in this role for about a year, to where I'm a systems engineer for our autonomous vehicle systems. And I'm not sure how many people, by show of hands, have ever heard of the feature Super Cruise that we have on our Cadillacs. It's a hands-off, I see a couple of hands raised. It's a hands-off, level 2 self-driving system, to where it monitors your eyes, and it only functions on the highway, and your eyes have to be facing forward, but your hands can be off the wheel. And it's a very advanced and innovative feature. It's the only hands-off autonomous feature that's on the market today. And we currently offer it in our Cadillac CT6, and we're expanding that to the rest of our lineup. In fact, this year we've launched it in our Cadillac Escalade and in our Cadillac CT5 and CT4, and it'll continue to be rolled out into the rest of our vehicles. In fact, we're going to have nearly 24 vehicles with this Super Cruise feature by 2023. And so, I'm able to work on this type of feature, and even features that build on this feature to make it even better. And so, with my role now, I'm a cross-functional project manager. I help manage all the software teams to meet the requirements to enable these advanced features. I write system feature requirements. For example, if I want the system to change lanes, but to be able to see the car in the lane behind me 100 yards, or how, I'm just throwing out random numbers. If I want to be able to see 100 yards to the left or to the right of me, okay, I write that requirement and say, okay, this space has to be clear for this amount of time at this distance, and then the system can make this lane change. So that's an example of a requirement. And we work with our software teams, which the majority are in-house, and we go through these development cycles and these iteration cycles to keep improving and keep testing these different softwares. So like I said, we develop different use cases. We use simulation and real world data to be able to analyze and make sure our products and our features are working before we put them out in the real world. And so, I don't want to go into too much. So I want to leave plenty of time for questions and answers. So that's just a little bit about me and my background and what I do in my role. Like I said, I'm really fortunate to be able to work on such innovative technology, and I really enjoy my day-to-day job. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and open the floor to any questions. I know I wasn't that good. I'm sure there's some questions.
How you doing today?
Hi.
Hi, I'm at Northwestern High School, and I have some students that are really excited about, joining. And that Super Cruise feature is something that we talked about. I didn't know that's what it was called. I'm glad you said it, because one of the ideas that they came up with would rely on that type of technology. So it's good to hear, that we're, on the same track of where you're headed, and expanding that technology. I don't have any questions. I guess we're all listening. You sound so knowledgeable. It's awesome to take it all in. So I didn't really have questions. Yes.
I have a question. So Jon, you're super accomplished, as we've all heard. And I'm a part of Jon's team, so I get to kind of see him more frequently. And you've reached this point in your career, in your life. Kind of taking a step back, how would you describe yourself when you were in high school? Like, if I was a high schooler wanting to try and relate to you, like, kind of, how would we be friends? How would we connect?
I went to Walnut Hills High School in Cincinnati, Ohio, which, if anybody's from Ohio, is one of the top public high schools in Cincinnati, or actually in the state. It's the number one public high school in the state. I played baseball and played football. I wasn't involved in any robotics clubs. Like that kind of thing wasn't very prevalent. But I did take an intro to engineering class my senior year, which kind of opened the door. And it's actually the same class that's offered at Ohio State. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't have good grades in high school. I had below a 3.0. I actually was shocked to see that, my success in college from high school. But one thing that I always excelled in was math and science. And like I said, it was really just from not prioritizing probably my schoolwork, but math and science almost came easy to me. I didn't have to study hard for that, but I was still able to understand. And I also got in a lot of trouble in high school. I probably got suspended at least once a year, and I'm being very honest with you. Let you know that I wasn't the prototypical A student. Nowhere close to being valedictorian like my sister was. I had some teachers loved me, some teachers hated me, and like I say, it really just depends. I had a large circle of friends, specifically if you play sports or were near some of the sports teams, and that's like I said, I was always out and about, in the hallways and the classrooms, in many different circles. Sometimes with all the sports students, sometimes with all people who were into their studies, or some people who were into computers. So, I had a very broad range of friends in high school. But like I said, I was not the prototypical, A student. So I definitely turned it around once I got to college, realizing that I had to prioritize my studies if I wanted to be a successful college student and get a good paying job when I graduated. I hope that answered your question, Kelly.
I have a question. If there's students that are on here that to get involved to this process, what would be their next step?
You wanted to get involved in which process? I'm sorry.
If they want to get with the internship or be a part of this whole scenario that you're doing, what would be their next step to get involved and to an internship or actual job in the company?
Yeah, so great question. So I'm not sure if we still have high school internship programs. I know in the past GM has done that, but I haven't heard recently about that. But I know for sure that we do hire interns from college, specifically throughout all majors, not just engineering. But the majority of our interns are engineers. Just like our employees, the majority of our employees are engineers, and so. We're really looking for people who are looking to work on this 000 mission, who have a passion behind it, who have done some research behind it, who can talk, who can speak the language, and have a general baseline understanding so that we can teach you also, when you come in, and that you can bring value. When I transitioned over to the ADAS, to Advanced Driver Systems groups, I had done weeks of research on my own on Google, understanding what the technology was, where people think it's headed. And so I could have that understanding so people could see the passion behind what I wanted to go to and why I wanted to go to that. One of my reasons for getting into the technology is because I want to make the world a safer place. And for me, there's too many fatalities, too many accidents that occur a year. And this technology can help alleviate and prevent all of that. Thank you. I hope that answered your question, Maurice.
I wanted to ask Spencer, didn't you send us the flyer of the 000? Or if you could just briefly go over that again, just exactly what that is.
Yeah, so this, I think the flyer you're referencing is the case study competition flyer. So this meeting, or this little seminar here, is independent of the case study. Apologize for being late. But so this is our semi-regular bi-weekly introduction to GM through the engineers. The flyer itself is going to be part of our 2-week case study competition that comes up, that starts next week. And that'll be the more involved technical approach to a feature design for GM. And we'll have a little bit more information next Monday. I think everyone in this meeting should have that meeting notice as well for 4 p.m. on Monday. We'll be able to go into more detail, talk about the expectations. But this meeting in itself is sort of a one-on-one with our GM engineering community. Yeah. John, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about your background with sports in high school, but obviously having talent in math and science. I find that a lot of the engineers who succeed at GM are well-rounded, and that they work well in a team. Are there any soft skills that you think you developed with sports that you were able to bring to GM that weren't necessarily learned in a classroom that you found valuable?
Oh yeah, great question, and certainly teamwork for sure. I'm sure everybody has heard the saying, two heads are better than one, and that's very much so amplified when you're working in engineering. I don't think any of us at GM do anything on our own 100%. Like, we're always working with our team members. We're always, in a group making decisions, helping each other with research. So definitely teamwork, how to be a follower, but as well as learn how to be a leader in those sports teams, and knowing when to follow and when to lead. I'm sure we also have heard the saying, sometimes there are too many chefs in the kitchen. Sometimes you need to be an Indian and not a chief. So being on those sports teams also helped me realize situations where I needed to be either or, as well as developing communication skills and being able to learn how to be an active listener and learning how to clearly articulate myself with what I think and why I think something should happen. And then, being a leader by showing your actions, showing your actions first, as well as, giving credit to your team when good things happen, when you are the leader, and not taking all the credit for yourself. So definitely, communication skills, learning how to be a follower, as well as learning how to be a leader are some good soft skills that I learned in sports and other organizations that helped me in my current career. Great question, Spence.
There's a question in the chat that I think is really good. Feel free to keep posting more questions there. How often would your grades or not succeeding in school affect your ability to do certain things? Like, was there some things that had become more difficult than other things? And if so, what motivated you to keep pushing?
Yeah, certainly. So the top two things that come to my head are scholarships and internships. A lot of times the minimum GPAs for a scholarship or internship is a 3.0. But as a recruiter, I can't hire everybody. I would love to. So you have to, figure out how to separate somebody through their GPA, or, elevate people who you would select, a lot of times through their GPA or their communication skills. So if and like I said, in high school, my GPA was below a 3.0. And I'll be honest with you, I barely got into North Carolina A&T. I had to, into their engineering program because, they have higher criteria for students that come out of state. And so I had to, beg and plead my way into the engineering program. And so, that could have been an opportunity lost because of my grades. And so, like I say, grades are like kind of the first measure, a threshold or criteria that recruiters look at to see when they can hire you, because the hiring pool is so large, but there's only such a limited amount of spots that we can offer.
Yeah, John, I might say that I think GM is looking at more beyond GPA than they had in the past too. So while grades are an important factor, I don't think it's the end all be all. I like you, I didn't have great grades even in college for some courses, but I got my internship by writing a letter to the then president of North American Engineering. I told him sort of my vision for company and why I wanted to work for it. So I think if you show a genuine passion for what you want to do and express that to the company, they're going to want people who are really passionate about this mission we have, the 0-0-0 mission we have, and creating a better automotive environment. So I wouldn't let GPA or grades necessarily hold you back. If you're truly passionate, I think let that show, and that should help motivate you.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great point, because you are starting to see GM in a lot of companies, weigh GPA and grades less, and passion and enthusiasm and soft skills and being well-rounded a lot more. As a recruiter, if I see somebody that has a 3.0, but they're a leader in multiple organizations, and have good communication skills versus somebody with a 4.0, and they can't articulate to me what they did on their last project, I'm picking that person with that 3.0 every time. So yeah, great point, Spencer.
I think one thing I've noticed working with you, John, is you work really hard, and it's not just doing what's asked of you. Like, you truly do go above and beyond. Like, we'll be working on projects, or you'll have this assigned task, and you find other ways to contribute and help out teammates or help out our organization, or even groups outside our organization that you work with. So I think there is definitely that step of going above and beyond and having your kind of work ethic that I think makes a big difference in what you're trying to show and accomplish and how far you've succeeded.
Well, thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead. You know, that's a good question. A day could be, you know, I could do. So GM has a very flexible workplace. Let me start off by saying that we could work 5 or 6 hours. You know, maybe I had some errands to go run, or go, you know, had a repairman, or I could work 8 to 10 hours. You know, on average, it is roughly about 40 to 45 hours a week. But it really all depends on what part of the project and stage of the project that you're on. You know, are we researching? You know, what are we going to do and looking at suppliers, or are we launching? And you know, because my part's not working right, the plant is shut down. You know, and when the plant is shut down, that means the plant is not making any money and losing a lot of money every minute. And so, you know, when you have red hot fire issues like that, you could be working, you know, 14, 15, 16 hours a day. Or, you know, when you're in a low period, you know, you could be working, you know, 6 to 7 hours a day. It really all depends. So there's no really set time or standard. I mean, the goal, you know, you do kind of want to average 8 hours a day. But, you know, some days, like I say, if there's not a lot of work to be done, or you can't find any other work, it's a low period. But it all depends on the stage of the project that you're in. Thank you for that question. Any more?
I think we have another question from the chat. Thank you, Periel, for your questions. John, how nervous were you about your very first car you worked on? What were your thoughts on it? Did you doubt it?
Okay, so my very first car was a 1997 Chrysler Sebring convertible, and this was in 2005. I saved up, you know, allowance, lawn care money, selling candy, selling CDs to buy it, and you know, I guess, you know, I was nervous, but at the same time I wasn't. And this was before, you know, internet was booming and you could find anything with the click of a Google or asking Siri. You know, so downloading, looking at manuals, buying manuals, specific manuals for this car, working with the neighborhood mechanic, kind of letting him work on it, but you know, watching what he does and trying to help him out as much as possible, to where I got more and more confident. So, you know, like I say, I wasn't, you know, sometimes you have to break things in order to learn how they work, and to be able to learn how to fix it. You know, and I think that's part of the reason why I became an engineer, is because I do have an inquisitive nature and mindset, and I always wanted to learn how things. Yeah, I always want to learn how things work, and so I would take them apart, look at it, you know, try to figure out, okay, this needs 3 bolts, this needs 4 bolts, and really just follow the step-by-step guide and instructions. And when I got into real big trouble, that's when I had to take it to the neighborhood mechanic and give him some money to fix what I started. Kind of like if you try to cut your own hair for the first time and you mess up, you got to go to the barber to get it fixed. So, you know, I say really breaking stuff and to learn how to fix, because that's, you know, you learn from your mistakes, right? And so that's kind of how I went about that. Thanks for that question. Any other questions in the chat?
Well, hi, my name is Stephanie Jenkins, and I'm an assistant principal at Go Lightly Career and Tech Center. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Ms. Stephanie?
Good. So we have students on here that are involved in either our aviation program, our welding program, and we also have some students on here that are involved in non-traditional programs, such as our culinary program. So what type of advice would you, you know, give the students in terms of, you know, maybe considering this as a career choice? And also, what do you enjoy most about your job?
Yes, certainly. So thank you for that question. I would definitely say find something that you're very interested in, and something that's gonna, you know, keep you waking up every day. Like find your why. Like if you want to be an engineer, why? You know, for me, one of my goals was to make the interior of a car more comfortable for my height. Now you can't tell in this avatar, but I'm 6'5", and so that was one of my whys. And so really find what you're passionate about. And they say when you love what you do, it's not a job. And like I said, I feel like I get paid to play with cars, especially when I'm getting to drive them and take them home and test them and things of that sort. And that is one of the things I do love about my job, is that it's very dynamic. It's not I don't do the same thing every day ever. And I'm not just sitting behind a desk at a computer all day every day. I can go into the lab, run tests, look at simulations, go on the vehicle, look at data, develop different tests, help work with these different self-driving systems, crash avoidance systems. And so, that's one of the things I really love is, like I said, it's very dynamic, it's very hands-on, and it's really going to help mankind and improve safety. So I hope that answered your question, Ms. Stephanie.
Oh, yes. Thank you. And congratulations.
John, we got another question from the chat. Anthony Jackson wanted to know, how prevalent would you say software and electrical engineering are in your current field?
Oh, very. The most prevalent. It's more prevalent than anything else. So all right. So great question. So I started as a mechanical engineer, but the car has become, and I saw this, the car is becoming less and less mechanical and more electrical. As we transition to electric vehicles, internal combustion engines, those have over 1,000 different mechanical moving parts that's powered by, millions of lines of software. The software, the lines of code are starting at million, and now they're moving up to tens of millions of lines of software, and less moving mechanical parts. Electric vehicle has approximately 200 mechanical parts compared to over 1,000. And so, software is very prevalent. That's the thing now, and it's going to continue to be the thing, moving forward. So yeah, very, very, very prevalent. The most prevalent.
Yeah, and definitely something that I don't think you have to come in with an electrical or software engineering degree. Like you, I was a mechanical engineer who sort of evolved into this role. And then GM has a lot of resources internally. GM offers programs where they'll offer tuition assistance for students to take courses or to get graduate degrees while you're working, and sort of create that foundation on the side as well.
Yeah, and speaking of software, I highly recommend, if you're interested in engineering, even if you're not, learn a software language. Learn Python. Learn C++, HTML. If you know software, you can basically name your own price. Personally, for example, my sister, she didn't go to college, but she taught herself how to learn software, and now she's a IT programmer making just as much, if not more, than people who went to college and studied for 4+ years that's working in engineering. So definitely, I highly recommend that you learn a software language. It's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, but nothing easy is worth it, right? So definitely, please learn a software language.
We have two questions in the chat. One was a follow-up question that I think you kind of answered. Since vehicles are becoming more electric, what does that mean for jobs? And so I think you alluded to that, kind of having so much job growth in the software field and so many more positions being available for people who have taken the opportunity to learn that skill set. And then the second question is, when you first started working, what was the toughest thing about your job to you?
Ooh, I think the toughest thing was really just kind of getting acclimated into the corporate world from the university side and from school, to where you're in a much more comfortable environment, particularly at a historical Black college where pretty much everybody looks like you, to where you're going into a corporate professional world to where, pretty much nobody looks like me. I a lot of times I'm the only Black face in the room or in a group. And so you kind of have to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and really, get past that, whatever uncomfortable feelings you have to still be able to perform. And so I would say that was probably one of the toughest challenges, really getting acclimated to the corporate culture coming from the university level. And in regards to the jobs comment, for definitely, I mean, GM announced that we're hiring over 3,000 engineers just for our electrical vehicle and autonomous vehicle division. And we're having a hard time. We're having a hard time finding all these engineers because they're in such high demand from every single company. We're competing with the Microsofts, with the Googles of the world, with the Amazons, with Apples, because we're all looking for the same engineers, but that supply isn't there, but the demand is. I hope that answers those questions.
Yeah, that's a great response. One of the follow-ups on that from Stephanie that I think is really important to kind of talk about is, could you kind of describe that culture or kind of how you've seen, like when you joined our group, I know our autonomous team is kind of a different area of GM than most typical plants or DRE roles. How would you describe like the GM culture now and kind of how you feel, or how someone who's going to college for the next 4 years and then joining us 6 years from now, how do you see this kind of culture evolving moving forward as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I really see GM's culture as very progressive and forward thinking. It's very innovative. GM doesn't just want to be a follower; they want to be a leader in every space, as well as you're starting to see GM expand to just beyond automotive, just beyond selling cars, and really for example like developing and designing the mass, working with car sharing groups, and so you're going to have your job inside of GM that aren't just focused on developing and designing and selling cars. And so, to have that kind of culture, you have to have forward thinking, you have to think outside of the box. We have a very modern, type of culture to where we have open floor workspace and to where we're really increasing the diversity of thought to where we're looking to hire people from the different backgrounds so we can have that diverse design, to be able to design systems, products, and vehicles for what reflects society. So that's a great question. Like I said, I really think it's moving forward in an innovative mentality.
That's awesome. And how another question kind of following up on that as well, how long did it take for you to feel comfortable, or kind of what like maybe more tangible actions did you take to get to that point?
Yeah, so that's another great question. So, I was fortunate to be paired with an executive sponsor who was also an alumni of North Carolina A&T, and so he would introduce me and bring me to meetings, and really for me, I think building and developing relationships with people who look like you and who don't look like you are very important, and becoming comfortable, really breaking down those barriers and finding things that you can relate to. Anytime I meet somebody at GM, after the initial introductions, I think the first thing I ask them is, how long, just to break the ice, and it's a simple question, how long have you been working here? And then that'll get them into, okay, how many years or what groups or what company were they at before, and just kind of break the ice and start the conversation. I think you'll find that people love talking about themselves. And so anytime you can ask somebody a question to get them talking about themselves and finding things that you can relate to, that'll help build and develop that relationship, whether it be where you're from, or who you know from that area, or who you know from a different company, or where you like to travel to, or what sports you like, or what foods you like. Anytime you can get people to talk about themselves and you can find things that you have similar with them, that really helps build and develop that relationship. And then the other thing I say is offering help. Instead of asking for something first, always offer help first. See what you can do for that person. Not because you're always expecting something in return, but just because you're helping build and develop that relationship. And then in the future, that person is a lot more likely to want to help or do something for you because you offered and helped them first. So that's some of the things that help me, break down some of those barriers coming into corporate America, and that's kept me successful in my career by building those relationships.
I think let's field one more question. Just as a reminder, we are going to host these live with GM meetings on a semi-regular basis. So any students who weren't able to get their question or would like to attend one in the future, please keep an eye out for invites. We were so happy for everyone to be able to join. But maybe we'll just do one more question and then we'll wrap it up. So from Stephanie, what was the turning point from your days as a student who was not so focused to knowing what you wanted to do?
Good question. So, after graduating, like I said, with a below 3.0 GPA, I think it was like a 2.7 or 2.8, from high school to, finishing my freshman year with a 4.0 in college. I think the turning point for me was, part of it was a bridge program from high school into college that I went through on the summer that kind of gave me that professional development, that personal development, as well as allow me to take a class and grouping me with other high performing individuals. And then when the semester started, I developed a circle of friends that put studying above priorities, above partying. And we called ourselves the super team. And everybody finished with a 4.0 the first year. And we always studied together, took classes together. So definitely make sure, my circle of friends, were focused and had and prioritized studying. So I think that was one of the biggest things, because I'm sure we all heard the same birds of a feather flock together. And so if I have friends that are looking to party every night, then I'm probably going to want to party every night. But if I have friends that want to study every night or study on Friday before we go to the events and parties, that I'm going to want to study first. So I'm definitely making sure I had a good circle, understanding that my GPA was a determining factor of my success in my college career, and that enables scholarships and internships and postgraduate jobs and opportunities. That really was the biggest turning point of my student career. Thanks for that question.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jon, for being so generous with your time and answering all those questions. I feel like this has been an incredible time spent with the students, and thank you to all the students and teachers who were able to join and ask questions as well. I think we're planning on the next meeting happening in the beginning of February. We'll have a different spotlight engineer. But in the meantime, if anyone's interested, you have our email addresses. If there are questions that you weren't able to get answered, please feel free to email either Kelly or myself, and we can either answer them ourselves, or we can find people at GM who might be able to give you those answers. And we're also on LinkedIn if you want to connect. And yeah, I want to thank everyone for the time again. It's been great, and I'm looking forward to the next meeting. Yeah. Kelly, anything to wrap up with?
No, I think this is awesome. Thank you so much, Jon, for kind of being the kickoff speaker for this series. And just echoing everything Spencer said, we're happy to communicate with you guys. We're hoping to open up this Live with GM to other students potentially at the undergraduate level. So whether you're a high school student or when we start opening this up to more people, you can kind of hear what types of questions someone who is in college might have versus kind of the things you're thinking through. So I think that'll be really beneficial for everyone.
Yeah. And thank you all for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate this. I hope it garners some interest, and that you all are interested in STEM fields. Our goal is to help develop the pipeline so that, in the future you can come and work for GM. So thank you all for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very
much, Jon.
For your knowledge.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody enjoy your weekend.
You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.